The United States is heading toward a financial reckoning, and the numbers are no longer abstract. As of June 2025, the U.S. national debt has crossed $35.7 trillion, with annual interest payments surpassing $1.1 trillion. That's more than the country spends on national defense. And the worst part, this isn't a temporary spike, it's the new normal. And it's unsustainable. Every major empire in history that has collapsed, from Rome to Britain, fell not just from outside attack, but from internal economic decay. America is now facing the same fate, and this time, there's no one left to bail it out. The debt spiral is already out of control. Let's be clear, this isn't just about large numbers, it's about the entire financial foundation of the United States collapsing in slow motion. Since 2000, the U.S. debt has increased by over 500%, from $5.7 trillion to nearly $36 trillion. It grew under Bush, doubled under Obama, skyrocketed under Trump, and exploded further under Biden. Now, with no political consensus to cut spending or raise revenue, it's increasing at a rate of nearly $1 trillion every 3 months. The interest alone will likely reach $1.7 trillion annually by 2033. According to the Congressional Budget Office. That means within the next 8 years, the U.S. could be spending more to service past borrowing than on healthcare, defense, or infrastructure. That isn't just unsustainable, it's catastrophic. This level of debt has real-world consequences, crowded out spending. As more tax dollars go to interest payments, there's less funding for education, roads, clean water, and public health. Programs collapse not because of politics, but because there's simply no money left. Higher taxes, future generations, millennials and Gen Z, will face crushing tax burdens just to keep the lights on. Or worse, the government will print money to delay the crisis, triggering inflation. Weaker dollar. As confidence drops in Washington's ability to manage debt, foreign nations start dumping U.S. treasuries. The dollar weakens, import prices spike, and American purchasing power collapses. Credit downgrade. In fact, Fitch already downgraded the U.S. credit rating in 2023. If the debt continues climbing, more downgrades will follow, raising borrowing costs further and accelerating the spiral. This is the stuff that causes recessions, financial crises, and global panic. And yet, Washington behaves as if it's immune to consequences. Please take a moment to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. The so-called Big Beautiful Bill, passed in early 2025, is one of the most reckless pieces of legislation in modern U.S. history. It's not just another spending package, it's a fiscal time bomb dressed up as a stimulus plan, with long-term consequences that could cripple the U.S. economy for decades. Officially, the bill is priced at $2.5 trillion, but that figure is wildly misleading. Why? Because it's built on temporary provisions, massive tax credits and social spending expansions that, on paper, expire after a few years. But everyone knows that once in place, these kinds of benefits are politically impossible to remove. Lawmakers on both sides routinely renew them to avoid backlash, which means they become permanent by default. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget estimates that if these tax cuts and subsidies are extended, as they almost certainly will be, the real cost could balloon to over $5 trillion in the next decade. That includes $1.2 trillion in extended clean energy tax credits, $900 billion in expanded child tax credits, and universal pre-K $700 billion in continued healthcare subsidies, $600 billion in corporate write-offs and bonus depreciation, and hundreds of billions more in interest payments caused by the extra borrowing. This isn't just excessive, it's economically suicidal in the middle of a debt spiral. What makes the BBB especially dangerous is that there's no revenue plan, no new taxes, no closing of loopholes, nothing but borrowed money. Even conservative estimates say this bill alone will add at least 2-3 percentage points to the debt-to-GDP ratio over the next 5 years. And the real danger? It normalizes this behavior. It tells lawmakers, go ahead, borrow another trillion. No one's paying attention. It teaches Wall Street, don't worry, the Fed will always step in. It signals to foreign lenders that the U.S. has no intention of ever getting its house in order. Once this mentality becomes the baseline, it's no longer a question of if the system breaks, it's a question of how violently. This bill was passed not during a recession or emergency, but during what was supposed to be a recovery, and yet Washington decided to open the fire hose of spending again, not with surgical investments, but with blanket giveaways that further hollow out the fiscal core of the country. The big beautiful bill may look like progress on the surface, but beneath it lies the biggest acceleration of America's debt crisis in modern history, one that could push the country beyond the point of no return. Not even the Fed can save the US anymore. For decades, the US Federal Reserve acted like a cheat code: print money, lower interest rates, and keep the economy running no matter the cost. But now inflation is back. The Fed can't cut rates without triggering another spike in prices. But if it keeps rates high, debt becomes unpayable. The Fed is trapped, and so is the country. This is the exact debt trap that crushed Argentina, Venezuela, and post-WWW Germany. America may not be there yet, but it's heading there, faster than anyone in Washington is willing to admit. China, Japan, and Saudi Arabia, once the top buyers of US debt, have already started divesting from treasuries. In 2024 alone, China reduced its holdings by nearly $100 billion. Other nations are moving toward trade in local currencies. The BRICS Plus alliance is expanding alternative financial systems, and countries are asking, why should we keep buying debt from a nation that can't manage itself? If global demand for US debt falls, borrowing costs rise, and then everything unravels. It's a feedback loop that ends in either default or dollar collapse. While America is sinking into a hole of debt just to survive, China's debt is different. Yes, it exists, but it's overwhelmingly domestic and productive. Debt in China goes into bullet trains, ports, tech parks, and infrastructure that generates real returns. It's backed by tangible assets and growth. In contrast, the US is borrowing to fund foreign wars, bail out banks, and patch up broken systems. One is strategic, the other is desperate. And while the US is stuck on defense budgets and healthcare band-aids, China is taking over global markets, from EVs and 5G to rare earth metals and AI. This isn't just a crisis waiting to happen, it's a slow-motion implosion, and the world is watching. America's debt addiction is no longer a political talking point, it's an economic death sentence. And unless it's addressed with real solutions, not slogans, the fallout will be generational. Default, hyperinflation, dollar collapse. These are no longer fringe predictions. They are now plausible outcomes of a system that refuses to change. Every empire that ignored its debt warnings has fallen. The US won't be the exception. It will be the next lesson. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more content.